I talked to Kermit a lot.
Mr. Speaker, you are live.
All right, thank you. All right, well, good morning. We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. Carol, if you'll call the roll for us, please.
Yes. Representative Bear.
Here.
Representative Burkhart.
Here.
Vice Chair Duncan.
Here.
Representative Air.
Here.
Representative Gray.
Here.
Representative Heiner. Representative Sherwood.
Here.
Representative Western.
He's excused.
Chairman Greer.
Here.
8 present, 1 excused.
Okay, thank you. Well, good morning. Welcome to the Minerals Business and Economic Development Committee meeting. We have 4 bills we're going to try to get to today. House Bill 110 and House Bill 170, both dealing with economic development. And then we'll dive into House Bill 155 and then House Bill 166. And just sort of a heads up for the committee, I think it looks like there'll be several more reliability bills, electrical reliability bills coming our way. I think they'll be read in today. And what I'm going to ask how we'll handle these is we'll take testimony on each one of the bills and the nuances of the bills. Ask the committee to take very good notes while we're doing that. We'll see what other bills that we get in. I know I co-sponsored a bill that's similar to these, and we'll take testimony on them, and then what we'll do is maybe during the budget when we're going in at 9:30 or 9 o'clock, maybe against my own rule, but we'll come in earlier, and then this committee will work those bills after we've taken all the testimony and try to find a path forward with those and see what works. So that's kind of my ideas right now. Just a heads up when we get to those bills, take good notes and understand the differences in them, nuances. Okay, so to begin with, let's go ahead and start then with House Bill 110. Representative Gray, do you want to?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I'm proud to present House Bill 110. Really excited to come back to the Minerals Committee here in a 3rd term. And one of the things I really wanted to do was to try to bring constructive improvements on the Wyoming Business Council. And so I was going through the Wyoming Business Council statute and thinking about some of the things I had heard in the 1st term when I was on this committee. And I thought this would be an improvement there, which is to place the promotion of low tax rates, which is an enormous investment that the people of Wyoming have made, and to place that in their statute, that is something that is important for the Wyoming Business Council to do, but which they're already doing in some ways. But I think it's important to put that in statute and to also set up a process where the Minerals Economic Development Committee is evaluating the effectiveness of that strategy, because it is an enormous investment from the people of Wyoming, and we need to see, I think, how effectively that investment is being used, especially in light of some of the tax discussions that we've heard on the floor. So going through the bill, page 2. Page 2 and the start of page 3. These are just findings saying that Wyoming has a low tax rate climate. And I just wanted to lead with that. I know some people like findings, some don't, but I thought leading with that would make clear the intent of the bill. And then the heart of the bill really starts on page 3, line 9, which is going into the Wyoming Business Council, general powers and duties of the council, 912-104, and there in C, it says it shall be the duty of the council to promote the state's low tax rates imposed upon individuals and private businesses in Wyoming in comparison to other state, national, and regional tax rates. And there in Romanet I, that they will assemble and distribute information concerning the economic advantages of that low tax rate, and Romanet 2, that they will promote and implement programs to promote the state's low tax rates. And Romanet 3, moving to page 4, take any further action that they view as advisable to promote those low tax rates. Then in 912-106 in their planning and research statute, we also place in there that they will develop, where it says that they will develop a strategy, a comprehensive strategy for the state in economic development. It also includes that they're going to develop a strategy around this low tax rate structure that our state has. In section 3, it sets up a reporting mechanism. I've always wanted us to look a little deeper in the committee on this issue. I know when the previous director was there, questioned him a little about it in some of the 2017, 2018 meetings. And I was hoping that we could delve a little further on it during the upcoming interim so that they would be reporting to us in the next 2 years on their work regarding this act. And I think it's the time to do this with a new director. I mean, I know maybe we'll talk about timing a little bit, but we're kind of getting out of, I mean, obviously we're still in COVID relief mode, but I think we have a new director, and now that some of the COVID programs have been implemented, and now I think it is appropriate to move into this discussion. So that's the bill, and I appreciate the committee's consideration of it. Thank you.
Committee questions for Representative Gray, Representative Duncan, Vice Chair Duncan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Gray. Couple questions here. One, did you contact the council in doing this bill? And what was their response in this? Because I believe they already do this. Secondly, I'm concerned that this bill will impact the council and handcuff them in recruiting potential businesses in terms of them being able to find potential businesses and narrow their scope and being able to find people, because in my understanding, the taxes is a very small part of why it attracts people to here. So I would like to know if you contacted them and what was their response, and what is your response to such a narrow focus on this?
Go ahead, Representative Gray.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, we did have about an hour and a half Zoom, and I appreciate Representative Sherwood. She helped me to set that up, and it was actually one of those Google, whatever that video. Anyway, it was over video chat. It was about an hour and a half, and so the response at first was, yeah, we're already doing this, but I think the conversation was constructive. We got also, I don't know if we're going to get into the discussion on fiscal impact. Inadvertently, I think that conversation caused some confusion on the fiscal impact of this. Obviously no appropriation in here, but I was talking a little bit about their marketing materials and how much are they talking about this in there. And I thought that was something that the committee could review. And I think they confused in the first draft of the administrative impact that I was asking them to redraft their marketing materials, which led to $1 million fiscal impact according to the first. Then they revised it and said that if it leads to the base case scenario, which is continuing what they're already doing, it's a zero cost. And I'm sure you saw that there in the 3 scenario thing. And there's no appropriation there. It's not directing them to come up with the new marketing materials. But inadvertently, I think that conversation might have affected that first draft of the notation of administrative impact. We were talking about, they call them assets. They're what they do is their marketing materials. I'm very interested in that, the way we present our state from that first, from T to green. We were talking in that meeting, what does recruitment of business look like from T to green? Because that's something I hope maybe we can talk a little bit more in the committee. And they were going through each step that usually plays out in the process of recruiting the business. Obviously, there's variations within each step, but one thing I like us to do is maybe in the interim visit a case study where we look at one of these businesses that we've been successful in recruiting and how did that work from T to green. But the reality is that and sometimes this happens, is there's a dichotomy, is that the agency, they're doing it, but then they come back and say, well, they need some money to actually talk about this more in their materials. Well, if they're already doing it, then that's kind of circular. And they came back and kind of acknowledged that. But what I think it does when they have their next round of 900 series expenditure on hiring, and the one thing I got out of that notation of administrative impact is how much it costs to hire an ad agency to produce these assets. What I think it will do, and that's why I think this isn't just, hey, they're already doing it. When they do that the next time, contract out with 900 series to come up with these assets, they're going to think about this more. It's going to be clearly in their mandate. And I think it's going to be there further at the top. And I don't think we should have defeatism around our low tax structure. That's what I kind of from the previous administration, 2017, 2018, I noted kind of this defeatism around it. And I think we need to be a little more proud of it. Obviously, like you said on the second thing, it's not the only thing, but it's a huge thing. And it's a huge advantage in our state. And if we're not promoting it, I think it's a problem. So thank you.
Yep, follow up, Representative.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I really have some pushback here, and I respect where you're coming from, and I appreciate your enthusiasm and passion. However, one of the big companies that was highly promoted that came, the main reason they came was because of the fact that the college nearby had an ammunition, had a gunsmithing program in the college. They had a community that had all the other resources. That's why they came. So our community colleges, our communities, they have all these other resources. That's why a lot of these other businesses come. It may be on the premise that the tax is low and it's business friendly, but if in my involvement with economic development in my own community shows and proves time and time again that yes, the attraction may start, the carrot is the low tax. However, that's not what sustains them, and that's not why they're here. They're here and they stay is because of all the other things. So again, my question is, don't you think maybe your bill is handcuffing our business council to one thing rather than the multiple things that economic development stands for within all of our multiple communities, rather than just the simple low tax structure?
You go ahead, Representative Gray, and then we'll debate maybe a little bit later if we move the bill. Okay.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Representative Gray.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Representative Duncan. So again, you go into 912-104, it's not the only thing we're asking them to promote. We're asking us to promote all the wonderful things in our communities. And it's a potpourri of things, that a panoply of things that cause a business to move here. But I think it's the opposite way. For the statute not to mention our low tax rates, I think it's an omission, is to not say anything about them. So all it's saying is it's one of the things that they're going to consider in their promotion, in their coordinating statutes. And so, we can come up with different scenarios, and I agree it's a panoply of things, but I think this is part of the equation. I don't think it hurts our state at all. And so I think we should put it in there. And I think as a committee, we should evaluate in the time when people are talking about raising taxes, how effective is it? And that's section 3 of the bill. And I think there's a lot of controversy about that. I think I view it as more effective than some others may view it. And maybe even from that last comment, even you may view it. And so I think we should try to come to a conclusion on it rather than just start it from our different premises of our views of government or whatever. I think it'd be good for us to talk about this on a committee, and that's section 3. But all it does is it just adds it to one of the things they need to consider when they're in 912-104, when they're trying to bring businesses to Wyoming. Thank you.
Any further questions, committee? Yep, Representative Bear.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Gray, I guess it's a little different question I have from the previous one, but somewhat similar as well. Did you give any consideration? We work very hard to make our regulatory climate, all of our oversight in the state, and make it business friendly. Do you have any thought to include that part of our regulatory climate as well as the tax structure?
Representative Gray.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think that's a good addition. I do think the amendment from Representative Sherwood, appreciate her sending it out. I think it's a little too broad, but I think we could add some language in there about regulatory climate. I mean, that I think an overall strong pro-business vibe, that sort of thing. Yeah, I think that would be a good addition. Thank you.
Okay, any further questions? We'll go ahead, Representative Hire.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm having a little bit of trouble understanding a department whose mission statement it is to promote Wyoming and bring in new businesses. We have to legislate and tell them how to do this. It's their duty to promote Wyoming, where low tax structure, the regulatory environment, the great outdoors. Do we need to put in here that to promote the wilderness area in the center of the state and the outdoors? I think the department head should be held accountable for how they're doing their mission statement. And if they're not doing that, do we have to legislate that or just bring him in and ask him to testify why they're not?
Do you want me to answer that one for you, Representative Gray?
Go ahead.
Okay, because I think the time on, so we have a new director and he's probably listening, so I hate to say this, but he's been doing an excellent job. He's refocused their mission. And it was our intent last year to do a deep dive into the Business Council to review all of their programs and the programs that aren't working to help them. And they've developed a new mission statement and a new direction. And I know sometimes we get tired of that, but you need that in an organization. You decide where you're going to go. They've done that. The problem we ran into was they got involved handing out the CARES funds, as Representative Gray said. They're done doing that now. This is fully the intent. I've got a long list of statutory amendments and things that we'll be discussing this interim with this committee. So the answer to your question is, we put it in statute, we have to do it. If we don't put it in statute, it rests on us to hold them accountable. That's what our joint committee does. So, okay. Any further questions? Let me try to keep us moving here a little bit this morning. Okay, can I, just from the audience, who intends to speak on this bill? So I've got 1, 2, okay, so 2 people. All right, if the Business Council is ready, why don't we go ahead and get them logged in? And then Representative Sweeney, please come forward.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So part of my apprehension with this particular piece, I think, is already a little bit been touched on, but it is on page 4. With the additions starting on line 9 of page 4, which, my belief is the Business Council is already doing these things, and to insert in particular into that section of the statutes on the promoting the state's low taxes and as a key part of their strategy. I just question the need for the bill, but that in particular bothers me. I think this particular agency, which began years ago as a quasi part in, part out of state government, and it was really going to be funded from private business about halfway. That just didn't seem to take off back in its original state. But I really don't see at this point in time the need for this. I think they already report to this committee as part of their mission. And I do believe the new director's doing a heck of a good job, and would ask, there are people out there that truly believe the Business Council is nothing but a handout in corporate welfare. And I am not one of those. I think there's a tremendous role for the Business Council, and I think they're doing a good job. So with that, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Sweeney, let me ask a quick question. I'll take my chairman's part. You think the bill does any harm?
I question you know, if it would do harm, if we just key in on one element, and it's been said before, why aren't all these companies moving here? Because of our low tax rates, and this has been going on for years. And I just think it's one of the things that's so vital, so important is taxes. But I question the motive.
Representative Gray, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Sweeney, one of the reasons appreciate your comments. One of the reasons I was hoping to bring this bill was wanted on a second stint on Minerals Economic Development Committee to try to do something constructive on the Wyoming Business Council rather than what you talked about. Sometimes and I've prescribed to this, and I probably still do that sometimes the activities maybe are and I'm not talking about COVID related. That was a different, but sometimes they're maybe not the proper role of government. But what I wanted to try to do was to do something that might alleviate some of the concern and maybe move it in a direction where we're promoting something that we're all in agreement is great about our state. And if it alleviates some of the concern on the Wyoming Business Council that maybe it is in a direction that is appropriate and proper, do you think that would be worth it? Because I'm trying to be constructive here. I'm not trying to hamstring anybody. In the past, I remember in 2017 when I first talked with them about promotion, and I thought it promotion of low taxes, and I was disappointed with their answers. And I thought about it, some of the answers I've been even this year talking about some of the exchanges I've had in 2017. And I thought, well, let's actually try to go into the statute and fix it a little bit and be constructive. If that's maybe alleviating some concern, might it be worth it?
Mr. Chairman.
I don't want to get into debate.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Is the Business Council ready?
Mr. Chairman, I'm not seeing anybody from the Business Council raise their hand online.
Okay. All right then. Lisa. Yeah, come on up, please.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members. I'm Lisa Johnson with the Wyoming Economic Development Association. Our 150 members statewide represent economic development corporations, chambers of commerce, municipalities and counties, private industry, and our state and federal partners. And I'm speaking in opposition to the bill. I can recognize that there are some findings in the bill that we agree with. Solidifying the state as a preeminent destination for business and family, we agree with that. Generating economic and employment growth, that's the mission of economic development. But we do question the necessity of legislation for something that the agency is already doing. If you look at the Wyoming Business Council website, when they list the advantages of doing business in Wyoming, the low tax or the positive tax climate is at the top of the list. So it is listed in their marketing materials. And I think that when you talk about low taxes, it's also important to recognize at the Wyoming Business Council, they have a low staff and a low budget. I directed one of the divisions there, and we saw our marketing budget cut year after year just because that's the way it is. When I was the economic development director in the land of Goshen, we went through a rebranding process for our tourism marketing and promotion. And we spent about $60,000 on market research to really understand what appeals to our market. And so really, when we're trying to market Wyoming, we need to know what's going to resonate with the businesses that we're trying to bring here. And when economic developers answer the phone and they are talking with businesses that are looking to come to the state, that's not the first question that they ask. They already have an understanding of the tax climate, and what's important to them is the infrastructure. And do you have business buildings ready to go? And then they want to know about the labor force, because if they don't have the labor force, then it's not going to do them any good to be in business here. And then they probably ask about incentives, and that's when the tax climate comes up. So I guess it's important that if you're wanting to augment the marketing efforts of our state, it does take an appropriation. If you want the Business Council to be able to go above and beyond what they're doing, then they need more funding. There's professionals there. They know their job, and we just would appreciate the support for economic development. We're glad that that's on the top of mind, but we just don't think this bill meets the mark. And so I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Committee, any questions? Okay, I'm gonna go Representative Bear.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Johnson, you mentioned a $60,000 study in Goshen County. Can you just share with us what the results of that study were, as maybe top 3 things that you found in that study?
Sure. Mr. Chairman, Representative Bear, what we did was it was based on market research, where we really tried to understand the assets that we had to market, and how our target market was. It's been a few years, but basically you were really trying to understand the needs of the market and communicate how your community as a destination met the needs of that. And it helped us really put together a whole brand narrative and strategies for what avenues of how to communicate with that market through image, through our advertising, through website. Anyway, it came up with a whole comprehensive approach to communicating all of the assets of the area, and not just one particular asset.
So I want to follow up. Were there 3 top priorities that Goshen County needed to address? Wasn't that your question, Representative Bear?
Oh, okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Okay, so in this particular example, Representative Bear, it was a tourism strategy. And so it's a little bit different than economic development. Tourism is one kind of economic development strategy. If I were to answer the question about how to market the state or the community as a destination in economic development terms, I'm struggling just a little bit with the question.
That's okay. Sounds like we thought it was an economic development strategy. So go ahead, Representative Heiner, then Representative Gray.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate this. And I appreciate Ms. Johnson being here. I can sense her enthusiasm for economic development, and I appreciate her testimony. Short of appropriations, which we're kind of hamstrung right now with the budget, is there anything with statutes that this committee could help with the economic development of the state that we have within our purview or within our control?
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Heiner, thank you for the question. I think that there are some issues that this body will be considering that will help. One of the most important tools to communities is the Business Ready Community Grant and Loan Program. And so anything that will make that more flexible and modernize that program will be very beneficial. That's the top of mind right now.
All right, Representative Gray, sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate your comments. I just wanted to ask, what is the role of the legislature then? I think this is a debate that sometimes we get with folks in the executive branch. If updating the WBC statute for something they're already doing to make it conform to that, if that's considered a bridge too far, I begin to not understand what some view the role of the legislature at all, besides handing out more money, which is the one thing you said we could do to maybe be more effective, and I disagree with that premise. I think the statutes are a coordination of the legislature and the executive branch to direct the agency and what they're doing. And they're the way that the legislative branch inserts themselves into that process, also through the budget. And we're fiscally constrained, but updating the statutes in conformance with something they're already doing, and also exhibiting that legislative oversight in the upcoming interim, where we're going to talk about a specific area that I don't think has been emphasized enough. I think that's a really appropriate use of legislative power and really in line with trying to be constructive and moving the WBC forward, rather than just us approving an appropriation and saying, here you go. So do you agree with that? Thank you.
Go ahead. Ms.
Mr.
Johnson.
Chairman, thank you. Representative Gray, I'm glad that you asked that question, because I think that updating statute to ask for a greater emphasis on marketing and promotion is not a bad thing. I think the problem is when you pre-select what the key message should be. And that was the benefit of the market research in the project that I referenced previously, is identifying what's the key message that you need to communicate. And then having a plan is one thing, but having the dollars that it takes to implement that plan is something completely different.
Okay, we got to
Yeah.
get through a lot of bills.
Thank you,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman. So, but Ms. Johnson, I mean, I would disagree that this is pre-selecting. I mean, the statute already says they're going to promote the wonders of our state and our people and our communities. It already says that 912-104. This is just adding in tax rate, which I think are low tax rates, which I think was a huge omission. So, I'll end it with, do you agree? But because it's a question in this format, but I just would gently push back against that. I think that's already in there, that they're going to promote everything else wonderful in our state.
We're
Thank
not-
you.
I really want to get away from debating with witnesses in this committee.
Okay.
Representative Gray, you and I can debate that if you
All
want
right.
later on, but okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Mr.
Is
Chairman.
anyone else to testify?
Mr. Chairman, I have the CEO of the Business Council available to speak.
Okay, thank you. Director
Mr.
Bell?
Chairman,
Yeah.
if I might, actually, I'm here to answer any questions that the committee might have in terms of what's been covered. I think that's great, but I'm here to answer any questions if there are specific questions for me.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Director Durrell. Any questions for Josh Durrell specifically? Representative Gray, do you have any questions for Josh? Okay. I guess I'll ask the one question then, is what is the Business Council doing to promote the low tax structure in the state of Wyoming currently?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. And, the Business Council takes a pretty consultative sales approach. One of the things that we know is that with economic development, especially around recruiting, and I think that's where we're focusing here, it is really dependent upon the industry that you're working in, the company that you're working with, and the exact levers that they're looking for. I think it's been mentioned a few times that, companies move for a variety of reasons. And one of the things that we do is we work really hard to understand what's most important to them. Now, we do know that low taxes are important. We do know that. They're not the only thing that drives a company, but they are important. And over the last few years, we actually worked with some of the tax associations in the United States to show that we were very tax friendly and business friendly as a whole, and actually get our rating changed so that it more appropriate reflected how attractive Wyoming is in that regard. And again, we work with them specifically to find out what levers are most important to them and develop the collateral. Either we have some general collateral, as Ms. Johnson noted, but we also do that specifically in the sales process. And I call it a sales process coming from business. It's less of a recruiting process, and it is a sales process of Wyoming. But we work to find out what's most important and deliver the information to those companies to make Wyoming their home. But again, it's not the only thing that's important, and we just learn to find out each time. So thank you for the question. I think it's a good one. I'm also looking forward to more interactions with this committee and the joint committee to make us even stronger. And I appreciate the help that we get from this committee, and I really do appreciate the focus that economic development gets. Thank you.
Okay, I got one quick follow-up. So Chairman's prerogative here. Mr. Rowland, you will be seeing a lot of us this next summer. But with your refreshed mission statement, where have you prioritized the low taxes in terms of business recruitment in your promotion materials and in your mission going forward?
Mr. Chairman, thanks for that question. We don't have a set prioritization of those things. Maybe that's something that we could talk about at a later date and we could work through that, but we don't have necessarily a prioritization, if you will. We just have collateral that we utilize when it's appropriate and important.
Okay, I have Representative Burkhart and then Representative Heiner. Oh, okay, go ahead, Representative Heiner.
Thank you, Chairman. I would like to ask the director the same question I asked to Ms. Johnson previously. The Wyoming Business Council is hugely important to the future success of the state. And short of appropriations, which we're hamstrung with right now, is there anything statutorily which we could do as a committee to help you be successful or more successful in the future?
Well, Mr. Chairman, if I might, that's a great question, Representative Heiner. There are things, and I think we're working to hopefully evolve some of those and continue to look for that. Over the past year, not to utilize this as an excuse at all, but over the past year, we have continued to listen to businesses, albeit through the business relief programs, and probably not as much as about expansion and recruitment as we would like. However, what we have seen over the last few years and using the expertise of my staff, we are looking at how do we evolve the programs that we have. I believe that last year, right about the time I came on board, there were some changes to the loan programs to make those more effective. I think that our grant program, which was quite frankly the darling of the economic development world when it was introduced, the business ready communities, there are ways that we can continue to evolve that as well. And so we're continually asking about those. And really, I think that in the interim session, we should look hard at our programs, look hard at how do we do that, because the willingness from this committee, as well as legislators across the state and in their communities, really it has been very helpful already. And I think we've sort of had to focus on other things in the year, but I really feel the need and the help from our legislators across the state and especially in this committee. So I think an interim work on that and taking a deep dive into some of these programs to make them really, not just work today, but looking toward the future and looking at the competition we have out there from other states and regions would be very helpful.
Okay. Thank you, Director. Any further comments? Okay. Mr. Doral, we've got, I think, another bill up here shortly. So, okay. Anyone else wishes to testify? Although you didn't raise your hand earlier, so I'd be inclined not to call on you. Okay, good. All right. With that, I'm going to close public testimony. And what's the committee's pleasure? Is moved by Bear, seconded by Representative Gray. Okay. Okay, Representative Gray, I should give you a chance to any discussions, any comments on the bill?
So, Mr. Chairman, thank you. I really think this bill is an attempt to be constructive. And I think there's some concern about the Wyoming Business Council. And I've had that concern. I still have concerns about it, but I think this bill is an attempt to alleviate this feeling that maybe this isn't being focused on enough. And, I'm concerned about the pushback on it. I mean, I am. I think that when someone's trying to be constructive on a program that, I mean, obviously we all have, I just think that it's something they're already doing, but it makes it clear. And it also gives us a setup so that we're going to evaluate this. And I think it's going to be good as they evaluate their programs. We have a new director who has cleared the initial COVID relief programs. I think it's good to insert this into statute and to also queue up this conversation in the 2021 interim. So thank you.
Okay. Representative Gray, I'm torn on this because and this isn't pushback on the bill. It's, I'm torn on moving the bill forward because fully the intent to take a deep dive, just as both questions Representative Heiner asked. And I've actually from employees from the Business Council, I've got suggested changes and programs that need to be looked at, whether they're good or bad, those changes or not. And this interim, you know, I've already talked to leadership on both sides that this committee is probably going to have extra days, by an extra meeting with our workload. I really want to take a heavy deep dive. When we take that heavy deep dive, the opportunity would be to set a more comprehensive priority list, as like the one that Representative Ayer brought up. And so I'm torn on that because I think we can do more and do it more comprehensively. Now, here's the other side of the story. If this bill goes forward, then they have to do it this interim. But I think your chairman has enough stroke on management council. I can get us prioritized. So that's my thoughts on that. And it's not a pushback against the bill or anything like that. It's just what I'm looking at into the future, is that this bill might be exactly what we need next year. But I would hope not. Or next year it's part of a bill that has a whole list of those priorities. But anyway, because I understand what you're doing. So, okay, those are my comments. Committee, any further general comments? Yeah, go ahead, Representative Bear.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to speak on behalf of the bill. I think this is a great idea, and I know I've got a lot more to learn about Business Council and what it is they do. And I had some questions for Representative Sweeney and for the director that I'm going to do some research on my own to get to the bottom of the concerns that I have. But I think this bill actually addresses some of those concerns. And so I'm on and for the bill.
Yep. All right.
Mr. Chairman.
Oh, okay. You know, I did say Representative Ayer, but I realized that is very close to Bear, especially for old guys with plexiglass between
Every
them.
time,
Yeah.
every time,
Okay.
every
Go
time
ahead.
Representative Bear's name is called for the roll call, I think, should I be voting?
Go ahead, Representative Ayer.
We need to split them.
It's who can hit the button faster.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm kind of like you. I'm torn. I really appreciate and I like the idea behind this bill. I wondered if you were going to give any consideration to this. It was an amendment that Representative Sherwood has offered, or?
That'll be up to Representative Sherwood if she wants to bring it forward. So
Okay.
I give consideration to everything you all bring to me.
Yeah. Just one other comment that I want to make. I think businesses, if they're looking to come to Wyoming, they're aware of the tax climate. And if that hasn't swayed them to come in the past, when we've had this 10-year history of most business-friendly tax climate in the nation, I'm not sure that putting it in a bill to emphasize, for the Business Council to emphasize, if it's gonna really be that much more effective. So I'm like you, I'm kind of torn on the bill.
Okay, yeah, Representative Burkhart.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, looking at the existing statutes on the Business Council, the legislature has given them broad authority, broad duties to do things. What this bill does is to specifically define one area that they have to concentrate on. And my concern would be that they concentrate on it due to our legislative directive and statute to the exclusion of all others. 912-104 is general powers and duties, and they talk about contracts, services, grant options, those sorts of things, and don't specifically tell them what areas to concentrate on. 912-105 talks about their services and what they will do. And I don't see called out in the rest of the statute anywhere where they're specifically defined to go and push one attribute of the state over another. So I think it in effect redirects their attention from a broad category to a very narrow category that in my discussions with direct discussions with companies, tax structure was not their top priority. And frankly, their top priority was an available, trained, engaged workforce. So I will be a no vote on the bill.
All right, so those are, we'll close the general comments. Let's go ahead and work the bill. And I don't, Representative Sherwood, you had sent us, or at least I have a copy of a proposed amendment. Would you, what's your desire with that?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I feel like a lot of the conversation today has already covered what that amendment would do in just broadening the conversation and making the directive more flexible. So I will withhold that amendment for now, and I feel like I'm ready to vote.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Okay, then. All right, committee. Let's go ahead then and work the bill in front of us. So on page 1, any amendments? Page 2. Representative.
I think there are
Aaron?
just a couple of grammatical corrections that need to be made on page 2 on line 8. Environment competitively, I think it should be positions. And then on line 12, there's an extra that at the first of that
Position.
paragraph.
To create a low tax.
We had just read better if that was an S after.
Representative Air, okay, so let's go ahead and I'm just gonna go through this. So page 2, line 7, the state's efforts to create a low tax environment should we insert a 2 after environment? Is that Representative Bear?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think the language works as is. It does for me anyway.
All right, well, how about the next one? On line 12. we have-
Excuse me, I'm sorry, I don't quite understand. So for,
Carol, we're just talking. right
Okay,
now.
thank you.
We'll help,
Okay.
yeah,
All right.
and please interrupt me when you, no problems at all.
Chairman, I do think it needs to say two competitively positioned statements.
Yeah, okay, yeah, we'll do this amendment. Okay, what was the other one, Representative Bear?
On line 12, it says the legislature finds that in the preceding paragraph, and then here it says has another that just need to strike that.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead, Representative Gray.
Mr. Chairman, I appreciate this. I think it's okay. I mean, because on page 1, it says the sentence would be the legislature finds that the state's effort to create a low tax environment competitively positions, we should probably have that singular. But I think position work, the state in attracting new businesses and generating economic and employment growth. Maybe add an S. Competitively positions.
That's how I read it. I thought it made more sense to
Positions?
put in
Yeah.
Okay.
positions.
I agree, thank you. Okay, so this is what the chair is hearing is we need an amendment on line 8 to change positions with add an S, and then on line 12, strike that and capitalize the.
Yeah,
Okay, Carol, did you follow? All right, was that an amendment by you, Representative
yes.
Bear? Seconded by Bear, thank you. Any further discussion on the amendment? Okay, all in favor, raise your hand. Okay, it's unanimous. All right, thank you, Representative Bear. Anything on
Mr.
page 3? Yeah, go ahead, Representative
Thank you,
Burkhart.
Mr. Chairman. I would amend the bill starting on page 1, line 1, over to page 3, line 2, and delete findings. That's just a personal preference of mine. I really don't like findings in bills like this. If I can get a second, if not.
There's been an
fine.
amendment to delete the findings. Is there a second? Is there a seconded by Representative Duncan, Vice Chair Duncan?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I don't think we need to have findings. We all know all this stuff. The quotes and things in here, I've seen those myself. I think most of us have, and I think the council has. So I just think it's unnecessary to the bill. If there's no discussion, I'll call for the question.
Any further discussion? Question being called. All those in favor of the amendment, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3. All those opposed? Oh, I'm sorry. Sherwood, did you vote aye? Okay, all those in favor, please raise your hand. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Those opposed, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, that amendment fails. Okay. Sorry, Don.
Why would you apologize?
Anything more on page 2? Page 3? Yeah, Representative Gray.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm going to try to amend in the regulatory aspect that Representative Ayer mentioned. So page 3, line 10, after the word rates, insert and pro-business regulatory structure. Line 12, after the word rates, insert.
Okay, go. Sorry, Chuck, go. Just make sure Carol's following you. So start again. Sorry, I wasn't
Okay.
keeping up. Yeah, sorry.
Okay. So I'll start over. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Page 3, line 10, after the word rates, insert and pro-business regulatory structure. That's friendly, yes. Business friendly. Business friendly.
And pro-business friendly.
Okay, hold on, committee. Let Representative Gray make his amendment. Okay, so here's what I've got, Representative Gray. Line 10, the state's low tax rate, insert and pro-business regulatory structure. Okay, continue, please.
All right. I'll page 3, line 10. Let's do it one more time. After the word rates, insert and business friendly regulatory structure. And business friendly regulatory structure.
Okay.
Then page 3, line 12, after the word rates, insert and business climate.
Okay.
And business climate.
Okay.
Page 3, line 17, after the word rates, insert and business friendly regulatory structure. And business friendly regulatory structure, same as line 10.
Okay.
Page 3, line 22, insert after the word rates and business friendly regulatory structure, and business friendly regulatory structure again. Page 4, line 2, insert after the word rates and business friendly regulatory structure once again. Once again, it's not inserted, but and business friendly regulatory structure.
Okay.
Page 4, line 10, after the word rates, insert and business friendly regulatory structure. And business friendly regulatory structure. And then page 4, line 12, after the word rates, insert the word and business climate.
Okay, I've got it. Everybody else have it? Is there a second? Seconded by Vice Chair Duncan. Any discussion on the amendment? Okay, all those in favor of the amendment, please raise your hand. Okay, that's unanimous. All right, thank you. All right, we were on page 3, page 4. Okay, page 5. Okay, ready. Question on the bill? Roll call, please, Carl.
Representative Baer,
Aye.
Representative Burkhart,
No.
Representative Vice Chair, Vice Chair Duncan. Representative Ayer.
Aye.
Representative Gray. Representative Heiner. Representative Sherwood.
No.
Representative Western.
Is excused.
Chairman Greer.
It's not going to matter. I'll vote aye because I'm going to make sure this is a priority this summer.
4 ayes, 4 noes. One excuse, it would be the motion failed. Do pass wasn't
Okay,
failed.
thank you. Okay. Representative Gray, we'll get this summer. Yeah, all right. All right, next bill up for our consideration is House Bill 170. Important discussion, 25 minutes behind schedule. Still important discussion. Good work, committee. Representative Henderson.
Morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. It's like coming home. Good warm up. And I appreciate.
Representative Henderson will be much nicer to you as a presenter instead of a committee.
Will you? Okay. I really appreciate the opportunity. It is.
It is.
Am I not
you're
speaking loud enough?
a little
How's
bit
that?
better. Yeah, let me get some coffee.
We'll get her done.
Perfect.
You bet. Yeah, thanks for mentioning that. Well, I want to speed up a little bit, if you don't mind. I bring House Bill 170, Wyoming Economic Development Zones, and I ask for your favorable consideration. I'd ask you to think about a baseball game, and we've been at the plate here, we're warming up the bat. Got the juices flowing, got the CEO, a good CEO of our business council, ready to go here. And I want to preserve as much time as we can for the folks who've signed up or want to participate into the public comment. You'll see on the information I provided to the committee, basically, let me just talk about the bill really briefly. I borrowed this bill from a few other states, and I've got 8 versions I think we went through on the draft. But this is basically a bill to enable folks across the state to come together and join in any important discussion of economic development. What, why, how, and when, but most importantly, where. 2 years ago, when I first started on the committee with several of you, we talked about economic development, and we put in place the Endow Council, spent a lot of money on it. And there were some good people on that committee and council, and we had some priorities identified. So I suggest this is an opportunity to perhaps bring those together and make sure that we're spending the economic development dollars in the right place for the right reasons and at the right time. And that's where, when you think about these what, why, how, and when, you want to know where. And I don't want to tell anybody what to do, but I want to see what we can do in terms of this bill, in terms of this time, and having gone through what we have, knowing we have maybe some other opportunities coming at us in terms of funding. And so basically this bill committee is simply, instead of a top-down, cram-down kind of policy directive, do this or else kind of thing, I'm suggesting inviting coordination, communication, and support to the communities, and have the communities tell us at the state level what they need to get things done. Perhaps a grant program, a lot of good things. I like what I hear about the priority that the chairman's talking about in terms of deeper dive. And by the way, I want to thank you, Mr. Chairman and Madam Vice Chairman, for your support in signing on to this. But in the baseball analogy, if we just get to first base and we keep this discussion going, this important discussion affects every person in our state and the people who are listening and considering our state. It's important to have an environment to recruit business. I think it's also important, maybe more important, to take care of businesses when they're here. And this is where I see the value of this bill. It's got the coordination, and then there's need indicators and success indicators. What's that about? Well, this bill was made and drafted using the words of the people from around our state who are in the business of economic development, who know what they're talking about. And I look forward to listening to their discussion. There's no appropriation in this bill. And I'm not asking the Business Council, I'm not presupposing that we should, in this bill, tell the Business Council left foot, right foot. But what I'm saying is, here's the information that we've gathered, and there's a lot of positive interaction and feedback from this effort. And then let's take it around the diamond, around and make a home run out of it. Go on home with this one. the bottom line that I'd close with here really briefly is, effective planning identifies critical needs and exposes growth barriers. We need to do that, right? And then the bottom line here is better jobs, better lives. I think it's important about jobs, healthcare, and education. And how can we help get those things together? Because when businesses come, they want to know about that. But the businesses here, they want to know about that too. We just went through that with our important business relief programs. And so that said, Mr. Chairman, I would just leave it there and ask for your favorable question, consideration, and if there are any questions.
Okay,
Thank you.
Committee members, any questions for Representative Henderson? Okay, so Representative Henderson, I do. Okay, now, so I signed on to this, and this kind of goes back to an initiative we took up 8 years ago or so with industrial development type of zones, and so I see an opportunity as we came out of the Endow exercise in what the modern workforce is looking for the environment in which to move into, and where innovation comes, entrepreneurship, and I'm interested in pursuing this and seeing what we can do. And so I'm going to say the names of some places around the state, and I don't mean to offend anybody by leaving others out, but I see places like Sheridan and Lander and Laramie being areas where people want to come to and where they want to live for the just one, for the natural beauty and the outdoor recreation, connectivity. We still have air service issues in some areas. And then I see other areas like we see Gillette, and we see some areas in the southwest part of the state, Casper, for example, for mineral development and for the ability to develop technology. We go to Carbon County, and we can into Uinta County, with what we see with wind development, energy transmission, those types of things. And so, while I signed on to this, one of my concerns was this subsection B on page 2, because this ties this into the federal government's idea of urban renewal. I'm not interested in urban renewal. I'm interested in how do we make Wyoming stronger, and how do we attract people to these wonderful areas. And I know I just left out a whole bunch of wonderful communities when I said that, but those are the things that I would like to see us. And so my question to you is, how can we take what you've given us and then bridge that to, and maybe my vision's not the same as everybody else's, but how do we do that?
Well, sir, thank you, Mr. Chairman, for that question. I think the most important thing is keeping the lines of communication open. If you're going to solve a problem, you be able to talk about it. I work in business development, and the key thing in business development is relationships. You got to start them, you got to maintain them, you got to understand them. And when I looked at the funding piece of this, I reached out to the council, I reached out to several economic development organizations. Many of these folks, key people in this legislation in the wording. But if you look at the economic development funding that's available from the federal government, it doesn't come without strings. I agree with that. But they have economic development districts designated across the state or across the country. And there's this big white spot where Wyoming is. We have 5 in our state, but there's 0 funding currently available. So I'm not suggesting that we, tell them to do it. I'm suggesting that we should be aware of it. And to the extent that we can take advantage of those dollars and leverage them at the local level. For example, in the Madam Vice Chairman's county, when the sugar factory was going down, in other parts of our state, we have a refinery here in my county that's trying to bring in new technology and shift the culture to a different type of fuel. Now, people aren't always for those things for change, right? But I think if we understand what the real objective of the change is and how we might be able to participate in that in a productive way, well, then the most important thing to me is jobs, right? How do we get these people to work? Because if we get them to work, they get a paycheck. They get a paycheck. They feel good about that, and they have the opportunity to have a good life. So I say, keep your eyes open, Mr. Chairman. And where you hear I'm from the federal government, I'm here to help. I agree with you. We got to be careful. But I think this bill provides an opportunity to start the conversation this summer, this interim, and build on that.
So Representative Henderson, on page 2, and then it's cited elsewhere too. And so I apologize, I just didn't get a chance to read it. So 13 CFR 303.7, that's the federal government's economic development zones. And if I'm not mistaken, there's one in my county, and it's kind of along the railroad tracks, and sort of an old dilapidated area that we're barely keeping alive. Is that, am I correct?
It is. One of the conditions to get the funding from the federal government is they have to have a comprehensive economic development strategy. Right. And the folks at the local level in the rural areas of Wyoming, they don't have the staff, the skill sets that was mentioned earlier. So yes, but I didn't want to include that, but I think we need to take mention of it, take notice of it.
Representative Duncan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to be clear for a lot of these people, are we talking opportunity zones in a part of this bill? And then are we referencing, for those that don't understand, that we're actually referencing opportunity zones, Mr. Representative Henderson?
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for that question, Madam Vice Chair. So yeah, I mean, the zone concept's been around since President Carter, maybe even before. And, in fact, we're blessed with all the people who come to our legislature. One of our longtime serving members, Representative Swanser, went to college with the gentleman who was in the Obama administration and set this up during that time frame. And I think we should have that opportunity to take advantage of that expertise. But yeah, it's the same thing.
Go ahead, Representative.
Okay, and a quick follow-up, Mr. Representative Henderson. My county, almost the entire county, is an opportunity zone. So just to clarify that these aren't the boogeyman. My entire county is an opportunity zone. So you actually get to take tax credits to defer your capital gains later. So it's actually in a fantastic program. You get to delay for 10 years. Those, and so the benefit is huge. So that's one of the big reasons why I signed on to this. So do you see that these are any other, I guess that was a statement. Wouldn't you agree?
I would, Mr. Chairman. I would agree. And by the way, we have a lot of good activities going on in a lot of places. Up in the county where Representative Gray lives, they have one of the only that I'm aware of foreign trade zone designated, virtually the whole county. A couple interims ago, I was able to participate on an opportunity to go down and look at some of the laydown areas in another state. How could we maybe think about that in our state? So those are things that are out there. And you know what? Maybe that's just the one thing that we need to know about over in Southwest Wyoming that's going on in Northeast Wyoming to help those folks. And then, of course, that business council plays a key role leading on that economic development.
Okay. Representative Heiner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Representative Henderson, for the testimony. I'm very much interested in this bill. But on page 4, line 11, we talk about carbon capture near emission sources, various emission sources that you've delineated. One of the states to the south of us has installed, they're putting in a pilot project for air capture. And it's been very successful, and they're going to full-blown build out in the next couple of years. That same company is operating here in Wyoming. Would this limit them to being able to put an air capture out in the middle of nowhere? Because it does reference that it needs to be near emission sources.
Representative Henderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's a good question. And the answer is, it depends. So let's focus on what you think is really important. I believe that if you look at the wording here, I said before, this wording was provided by people who actually do this for their job. And everyone knows about our integrated test center and our leadership in the area of carbon capture and all that that brings. But there are other things that, like you mentioned, that we should look at. They've incorporated in here rulemaking, so that that's a way to allow for those opportunities that are identified as you're mentioning, that the Business Council could help orient the efforts that apply to that area where you're talking about. We have a lot of unknowns here. And I think that's the importance of that interim study you're talking about.
Okay, thank you, Representative Henderson. Hang tight, because I may have a question for you as we work the bill. So thank you, I appreciate that, if you can. Who wishes to speak on this, just so I can get a feel? So I've got 1, 2, 3, okay, 4. All right, Stephanie. Then let's go ahead and bring in the Business Council. Representative Sweeney, why don't you come up while they're getting Mr. Durrell brought in?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I signed on to this in particular about the opportunity zones. I think it's a critical piece. The Business Council is working on that, but this piece of legislation, I believe, can be a great tool. Representative Vice Chairman Duncan hit it on the head. And we have an opportunity zone, a couple of them there in Natrona County, but it doesn't reach the full county. And why that's important is the possibility of a 1031 investment exchange. Plus, that could be wiped out after 10 years in carrying that forward. It also provides opportunities to bring outside investment. And for that very factor, large investment funds. So in people looking for that type of investment strategy, and it can reach over on the industrial side very largely. So with that, I'm very much in favor of this type of legislation that can help the Business Council and better clarify what we're doing with economic development. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Representative Sweeney? Okay, seeing none. Thank you, Representative Sweeney. Okay, is Mr. Durrell available then?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, I think any economic development discussion and help with this is something that we definitely welcome. When we look at this and we look at the communities across our state, not only those that are really severely impacted by, for example, some of the coal impacted communities and some of those that have very big pressing issues, but also as an opportunity to help those communities that may not be facing such a dramatic downturn, but are looking to plan for the future. This is something that could possibly help with that. We do feel like that economic development districts can aid in getting federal economic funding. We know that is true. So we've mentioned EDA funding, and really that's a way to help stretch those budgets further. And as our budgets maybe contract a little bit, this is a way to help expand those. One of the things though that I do think is really important, and we have noticed, is to make sure that communities are active in this, and communities are not really partners in it, but really they're leaders in it. To talk a little bit about some of the ways that we've been working in communities like Kimmer, Gillette, and Wright, to help with their activities. A lot of that is driven strongly by the communities. And to take Representative Henderson's baseball analogy perhaps just a tad further, the general manager and the sort of corporate level of a baseball team can put the people in place, and they can create an environment that people can succeed in. But ultimately, it comes down to the players on the field making plays and really taking ownership of winning those games. And I think that that's really important here, is that we do want to have a community-driven opportunity. We want to be there to help. Our team does that today, but having these zones is important. I'm guessing that there will be others that will talk to that. There are many experts across the state who understand EDA funding, who understand how these zones can be helpful. And really, one of the things that is really important to these zones and to communities is capacity building. One of the things that I've heard over the course of this last year is that capacity building is really important to the communities, because many of the communities that we have across the state, their leadership wears many different hats, and they don't always have the opportunity to put the focus and the time and energy into economic development that it requires. And so having capacity building and having, whether it be funding through us in combination with their community as well as the federal government, to really actually get that capacity to a level where they can focus on economic development, is something that can help a lot. And so that capacity building is another area of opportunity here. And I really stand for any questions or specific things about this, but I've also got some other folks that are on my team that would probably be able to answer as well. So thank you.
Any questions for Director Durrell? Okay, Mr. Durrell, I think looking at the structure of the bill, we have a report no later than December 1st to the Minerals Committee. One is that I'd like to move that to November 1st, simply because I don't like to have our last meeting that late in the year. And then the other thought that I had was really striking section 2, which requires rulemaking by December 1st, 2021. And sort of my thoughts is I would like this to be a little more interactive. One, you're gonna have to be interacting with the communities and business. And then I'd like to have you interacting with our committee and giving us your report. And then I think from there, we would develop legislation or direction moving forward. What are your thoughts on that type of process?
Well, frankly, in those cases, extra time is useful for sure, and having that process is going to be useful. I look at the team we have; it's pretty small, pretty tight already. And I look at the things that I see coming down the pike, and I think we're going to be fairly busy again. And so, yeah, I think that any kind of help or grace we can have in there to make it a little easier, I think could help.
So then my next question is how ready could you be in late August, mid-September to provide a meaningful report to this committee on this particular topic?
Mr. Chairman, I don't have a great answer for that right now. I apologize.
Well, a great answer would be, Mr. Chairman, I know we can do it and we'll bring you a wonderful report. You don't have that answer, huh?
Mr. Chairman, I would love to be able to give you that answer. And I will strongly consider being able to give you that answer at some point. Thank you, sir.
The Vice Chair Duncan just commented, it's quite refreshing to see you being, or not just see someone being so honest. Thank you. So, okay. Any further questions for Director Durrell? Yeah, Representative Gray.
Chairman. So, I just trying to understand exactly what the thrust of it and the addition here is. I mean, So on page 6, line 14 through 18, I mean, communities can already do this, right? So I guess they're just, the thrust of this bill is that they're doing it in coordination with you, right? I mean, that's the main thrust of it, right? So I guess, what is the difference you think that this bill creates the value added? And the other question I had is, how many of these are there already designated in Wyoming?
I apologize for all those beeps, Mr. Chairman and Representative Gray. It sounds like my calendar is asking me to do some other things, but I'll stay focused here. Yeah, so one of the things that we need to, I think, consider in this is that we do have, according to the EDA, we do have one economic development zone or comprehensive economic development strategy for the state. That was based on the Endow report. And we are working with the EDA to develop and find out if we can switch that over to the state economic development plan, which is what we're working with now, that was developed in 2019. So I think what this does is it provides an opportunity and it provides a mechanism to maybe take this a bit further.
Right. Any further questions for Director Durrell? Okay. Representative Henderson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a quick question. During the preparation, Director Durrell had a very interesting idea regarding the opportunity for grants, matching money and so on. If you care to share that, sure.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead, Director Durrell. I got two more bills.
Mr. Chairman, thanks. Representative Henderson, can you clarify that and provide me just a little bit more color on that? I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Director.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, during one of the text messages, you indicated the opportunity to perhaps consider matching funds through grants and so on.
Go ahead, Director.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Yes, sir, Representative Henderson. Yes, I think there are ways that the Business Council and through the communities can really structure a way for communities to have matching grants that we could provide and then help to match that EDA funding. I do think there are mechanisms for that and ways that we can do that. So, really, again, it provides a way for those communities to show their support. It wouldn't be something that we just automatically do, but really have those communities that are bought into the process and have some skin in the game and perhaps provide matching grant funds and ways to, again, maximize that EDA funding.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Yep. Any further questions? Okay. Thank you, Director. We appreciate your time this morning. Sir,
Thank you.
Come on. You had your hand up next. Yep. Come on up, please. Introduce yourself to the committee.
Mr. Chairman, Committee, my name is Dale Steenbergen. I'm President, CEO of the Greater Cheyenne Chamber of Commerce. We also manage the Wyoming Business Industry Federation, representing chambers all over the state of Wyoming, including a lot of the communities you mentioned, Mr. Chairman. So we stand in support of this bill, and I think it's important to remember that what we need in local economic development are tools, right? So, and I think it was mentioned that, hey, we can do this already. Well, no, we really can't. And we need a little support. So these SEDS, right, there's two ways you can get them. You can do, one way you can get them is that the federal government assigns them to you, is what we've been talking about. So it ends up being like opportunity zones and areas of importance. The other way you can do it is for the state to give you support to define these areas, to come up with a long-term plan and be able to apply for federal monies that you don't already are able to get. So for example, I had a loan or a grant request in that I got an answer to about 2 weeks ago. And the answer back was, do you have a SEDS in your area that you can apply this to, or what kind of a definition of region? Because we're not just going to say the whole state of Wyoming. You guys dive in, you're going to have to define an area. So we didn't, that's why they ended up refusing it, because we couldn't define that area. you know, it's important to get tools on Main Street, right? I had a good advice the first year I became a chamber director, and it was that what you're going to find when you start dealing with a lot of this stuff is we spend 90% of our time on the 10% and 10% of our time on the 90%. And that's what was, the gentleman was referring to exactly what I think you guys have in your communities, right? That your Main Street, your ranchers, your businessmen, they get the 10%. And tools like this are invaluable to us as economic development people around this state. And that big white splotch that Representative Henderson mentioned, we don't need to have that. We don't need a lot of support from the state on this. We just need ability to be able to go to work on these SEDS. There's stuff that goes back to PWEDA, which was in the 1960s. And we can actually get funding and set ourselves up to be able to receive funding where we can't right now. So, Mr. Chairman, committee, I would just ask that favorable support of this to give us more tools in our toolbox to help our Main Street businesses across the state. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your comments. Any questions, committee? Yeah. Representative Burkhart.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A very quick one for Mr. Steenbergen. So you say you can't currently do this. So does it take legislation to allow you to do this?
Well, I think it's going to take
Go ahead, Mr.
support.
Steenbergen. Yeah. Through the chair, please.
Through you, Mr. Chairman. I apologize. So yes, we need some structure from the state to really give this credibility, right? And then that credibility allows us to work through that federal program. So there might be a way that you could do it independently. I don't know. I'm not smart enough to figure that out. I was educated in Oklahoma, so I have my struggles, right? But some structural support from the Business Council on this would be important. And I think for some of our communities, they just don't have they don't even have full-time people. They're on volunteers. So they're definitely going to need some support to pull this off.
Yep. All right, thank you. Any further questions? Thank you for your comments. Appreciate it. Okay, let's see, I had Stephanie and then Ms. Johnson. Yeah. Okay.
And Mr. Chairman, you have a gentleman online, James Claysons, that would like to speak as well.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman and committee, I'm Stephanie Kessler with the Wyoming Outdoor Council. We think we like this bill. We just want to show some support for it. We are all for leveraging or exploiting federal dollars for what Wyoming may need. And we think this bill puts us in the driver's seat for doing that so that we have a little bit more control here at our state level. The only thing I would offer, and I recognize you may not want to clutter the bill, but there is a lot of talk at the federal level about throwing money at reclamation and restoration. And it may be something to add in to one of your sections here, maybe on page 4, line 18, where it talks about lay down areas to facilitate the construction, maintenance, et cetera. You may want to put in reclamation just so that we can capture those federal funds that might be coming down. And another outlier, which I recognize you may not be interested in, but since there is value-added agricultural developments listed here, you may want to consider value-added outdoor recreational developments because this is a booming, growing industry in our state. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Ms. Kessler, can I ask you a question? Why would you say we may not want to add reclamation or value-added outdoor recreation?
Mr. Chairman, thank you for that question. Living in an outdoor recreational oriented town, I find that folks in some other parts of the state struggle to understand the economics of what drives that and why that can be a big economic driver in a community.
Okay, I'm just saying, this community, this committee, this legislature appreciates the outdoors of Wyoming. We take great steps to protect it. We value it the same way with reclamation. This committee takes that very seriously.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, and I absolutely know that. Some of it is translating this new economy into Wyoming's terms, so people understand that it's got some big bucks behind it too.
Okay, thank you. We appreciate your comments. Okay, yeah, Ms. Johnson, please come forward. Yes, James Clausen. Could, while Ms. Johnson's giving her comments, could we get Mr. Clausen brought in? Whoever.
Yes, sir.
I realize, Carol, you're not doing it, but okay. Go ahead, please.
Mr.
introduce
Chairman,
yourself.
members, Lisa Johnson, Wyoming Economic Development Association, speaking in favor of this bill. And I'd like to just give a few examples of what these types of enterprise zones or economic development zones have been, how they've been used in other states. So the previous speaker talked about building capacity. In one state, they actually offered an incentive to businesses that invested in their local economic development organization to help carry out the economic development initiatives. Another state used an enterprise zone to bring on tax increment financing. That's definitely a tool that could be useful in our state. And then another one set up an enterprise zone where local governments could acquire and redevelop property. So, and then one final example is where a community like, or a program like the Business Ready Community Program, if there's a project located in an economic development zone, it could receive higher ranking or greater funding. So just wanted to show that having this plan in place, I think is what is different, is having the plan in place to identify further programs to enhance development in those zones, and not only to attract federal grant funding, but I think to attract capital or private investment. And those are the comments I wanted to share.
No, thank you. Useful comments. Committee, any questions? Okay,
Thank
thank you. You bet. Mr. Clausen's, I meant to mention Cody earlier when I was talking. Good morning.
It was an easy admission, Mr. Chairman. And good morning, Mr. Chairman and committee. Thank you for allowing me to participate in this way. And as much as I love Wyoming, one thing I don't love is having to travel all the way across the state to talk for a couple of minutes. So I appreciate this forum, and I'm glad that we're using the technology we have available in the state. I obviously stand in support of this bill, and I greatly appreciate Representative Henderson drafting this bill and allowing folks like myself who are boots on the ground in economic development to participate in the language included. This bill does some really important things. It really is written to create a framework for economic development on a regional and then ultimately a state level. And it's important because what it does is it encourages, it doesn't mandate, and it doesn't dictate, and it doesn't direct, but it encourages communities to come together in cooperation. And as I heard on Wednesday morning, Representative Harshman said, when the good people of Wyoming come together around an idea, they make a plan and they make things happen. And that's exactly what this is envisioned to be, is an opportunity for regions that make sense, regions that can communicate and cooperate, to come together and establish a plan of what they want to be and how they want to get there. And so with that plan becomes that tool that will help them focus on what is real and what is achievable. Because I think a lot of times we get caught up in this statewide discussion about what everybody should do, and we should focus on something, but it may not be realistic for one community or another. What's real in Cody is not the same as what's real in Casper or real in Cheyenne. And so we have to think about that on a local level. And we do that through a planning process, which is enabled under Section 303 of the CFR, which is the process for doing an economic development plan or a comprehensive economic development strategy. That's not a tool that provides anything other than a framework for what you should be asking yourself as a community that would be included in your economic development plan. And lastly, as CEO Durrell indicated, it helps create capacity, because one of the issues that we face in Wyoming is having the capacity in the people doing economic development and in the programs of the state. So how we would envision from the boots on the ground level this occurring is it builds the cooperation amongst, let's say, the folks of the Bighorn Basin, and sir, that includes you, Mr. Chairman, to talk about what's important on a regional basis. How do we put that into a plan? And then how do we collectively come forward to you as the legislative body that provides, enables, and facilitates the programs that help us make things happen at the ground level? I think that's really important, because as I hear, you know, we hear people talk about the boots on the ground are important, but many times we're not included in the conversation. And so we get to react to what's happened to us. And so think about planning from the perspective of you can plan for people or you can plan with people. And I'm a huge proponent of planning with people, and that's where the local capacity piece fits. One thing that I've listened to testimony, and I've listened to the people on the dais talk about the vernacular of opportunity zones, enterprise zones, urban renewal zones. Those are truly tools. Those are tools for economic development that can be applied within a particular area. The word zone does cause a little confusion here because it implies it's something that will actually give somebody something. Realistically, these economic development districts or zones or whatever you want to call them really are just a gathering of people taking those tools and implementing them where they matter. It does give us the opportunity, 303-7 gives us the opportunity to then apply to the Federal Economic Development Administration, part of the U.S. Department of Commerce, to become a designated district and actually apply for funding to support economic development planning activity on a regional basis. So I want to make sure people understand that this zone doesn't create something like the Opportunity Zone tool or an Enterprise Zone tool that provide any benefit. The big benefit to this is, again, cooperation, focus, and helping us build capacity. So with that, I would strongly encourage you to support this framework. I would encourage you also, if you do take things to an interim session, that this be a conversation, because the most important thing of this is giving us at the ground the ability to communicate to you at a committee level and also to our agency about what our needs are to make economic development really happen in Wyoming. And then that communication process can then feed the tools that we need to make things work for Wyoming. So with that, thank you, sir. I stand for questions.
Any questions, committee? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Klessens. Appreciate it. Okay. Anyone else? I don't recall anybody else raising their hand. Okay, we'll close public testimony. Chairman Harshman, we are not going to get to your bill, but sorry. You're working. Okay. You're always working. Which makes me nervous. Oh, okay. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Henderson, just one quick question. Do you think that economic development in Wyoming needs to be unified, cohesive, coordinated throughout the state?
Quick answer, Mr. Chairman. Through you, Mr. Chairman. Quick answer is yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, you good, Representative?
Yes.
All right. I'm going to close public testimony. What's the committee's pleasure?
Move the bill.
It was moved by Heiner, seconded by Duncan. Okay. Let's go ahead and work this bill then. I'm going to just make one comment is I'm going to kind of change the structure on this so that we get an earlier report on this. If this bill makes it all the way through to the Minerals Committee no later than November 1. And then as we make economic development in the Wyoming Business Council our focus, one of our focuses this year, that'll give us some opportunity to see how we might want to craft a statute or something or direction on rules going forward. That's kind of just committee. That's kind of what I'm thinking on this. And I'll, from the chair, I'll go ahead and make those amendments for sake of expediency. Okay, page 1. Page 2. Representative Burkhart.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would on page 2, line 12, just delete the not less than 5 and let the council decide what it should be.
There is nothing on
I'm sorry, line 2. It was a very short night. I would just delete not less than 5. Let the council develop whatever they need to.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. Would it be considered friendly to just say that the council shall identify Wyoming economic development zones?
Very friendly.
So is that good with the second? Okay, so Carol, that should be on line 1. It says shall, and then on line 2, we insert identify. Wyoming economic development zones, so strike designate not less than 5. Okay. And if I'm not mistaken, there is another place in the bill where we identify 5. Maybe there isn't. Okay. Any discussion on the amendment? Question being called. All in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, unanimous vote. Thank you. Okay. Anything further on page 2? Page 3? Page 4? Yeah, Representative Heiner. Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Air. Any discussion? Question being called. All in favor, raise your hand. Okay. All right, opposed?
Mr. Chair,
Representative Sherwood?
I apologize. I could not hear what was recommended.
Okay, yeah, so Representative Sherwood, the amendment was on page 4, line 19. After the word maintenance, insert reclamation.
Thank you.
Okay,
In
how's
favor.
your vote? And aye? Okay, that was unanimous. Okay, page 5. Representative Heiner?
After cultural and outdoor recreation.
Is there a second? Second by Burkhart. May I suggest a friendly amendment? Could we then go to?
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman. We have a technical correction on line 19. One of the drafts, I forgot to put the subparagraph I, but it's a technical.
No, Representative Henderson, we don't use an I in that situation.
Oh, okay.
It's a, yeah.
Well, then I didn't make a mistake. That's good to know. Thank you, sir.
Okay. My friendly amendment would be as a new section L that said value added outdoor recreation and then renumber as necessary. To friendly, second. Okay, Carol, are you following me? All right, very good. Okay, page 6. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. We do need to vote on that amendment. All those in favor of the amendment, raise your hand. Okay, opposed, that was unanimous. Okay. On page 6, I'll go ahead and do this. I'm going to propose an amendment on line 20, not later than November 1. And then by every October 15th thereafter. So delete December. Second by Heiner. Any discussion? Question or, oh, sorry. Go ahead, Representative Duncan.
No, I'm calling question.
You're calling question.
And I'm voting.
Yep, Representative Bear.
I wondered if we wanted to leave, make that November 1st. Or that's what you did. I was going to say December 1st, because November is a lot of times a time for a good last meeting.
I didn't hear you again.
I'm sorry. You're going to change the
December
first date to December 1st.
Not, okay, so Representative Bear, not later than November 1, 2021.
Okay. For the first one, and I'm just suggesting maybe for the ongoing report on line 21 thereafter, make it December 1st. A lot of times November is a good time for that last meeting. And if it's November 1st, then we have to have it in October.
I'm
Withdraw.
not following you, Representative Bear. Okay, thank you. So we have a motion for November 1 on line 20 instead of December 1, and is seconded by Heiner. Representative Bear, you're clear? Okay, very good. Question being called. All those in favor? Okay, that's unanimous. Okay, page 7. Okay, on page 8, I would simply move to strike section 2 and renumber section 3. Seconded by Duncan. Any discussion? Question being called. All those in favor? Okay, that's unanimous. Okay, any
Chairman
fur-
Greer, I just want to make sure, so we're completely taking out section 2, is that correct?
That's correct. And then we'd renumber section 3. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you bet. Any further discussion on the bill? Representative Sherwood?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I may need help with some language here, but I'm wondering if it's worth it. Well, I feel like it's worth it to put in a placeholder in the bill that would allow, if my understanding is we're getting another round of CARES funds and we need to invest those funds in a way that are forward thinking, one-time investment that build capacity, that create plans that lead us into the future. And so if the committee is open to the discussion of somehow putting in here language that allows a placeholder for when and if federal CARES funds are available, it would support this program. If you guys looked at the fiscal note or the commentary from the council, this does take somebody to coordinate, and a person means money, and SWOT analysis and plans, as we heard earlier in testimony, cost something. So just thinking about a potential placeholder for that fiscal ability.
Okay. Well, Representative Sherwood, do you have a proposed amendment?
I need help with the language.
Okay. Maybe that's something you could work on. I'm opposed to doing that. I want to stick with our appropriations committee and deal with any potential future CARES Act dollars at the appropriate time is kind of my thought. So, but you could work on a committee of the whole amendment. So I feel strongly about it.
Thank you.
Okay, any further discussion?
Question.
Okay, roll call vote. Carl?
Representative Bear,
Aye.
Representative Burkhart,
Aye.
Vice Chair Duncan,
Aye.
Representative Air,
Aye.
Representative Gray, Representative Heiner,
Aye.
Representative Sherwood,
Aye.
Representative Western,
Excused.
Chairman Greer,
Aye.
8 ayes, 1 excused, do pass with amendments.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Representative Henderson. Representative Gray, I'll give you the option. Do you want to present your bill today, or do you want to wait till Monday? We'll take up discussing it on Monday to make sure we have time. But you'd rather do, okay. No, not at our pace. So for those folks that came for those bills on the reliability, we're going to get quite a few bills read in today. My intent, as I said earlier, is we'll punch through those bills. We'll go in the order. We already got them listed, Representative Gray's and Representative Harshman's. And what I want to do is take testimony on those. And it may be better if we've got them all in hand on Monday and punch through those. And we won't take action on the individual bills. We'll take testimony. I've asked the committee to take good notes, and then we'll convene as our committee and see what works to get through that, to try to get something with some teeth, something that works for the state that'll pass the floor out. So kind of my plan. I've never worked it that way before, but I think that's a good approach. So, okay, with that, we'll go ahead and adjourn. And now, just gratuitous comments. So we're going to discuss economic development this summer. Now, we've got limited time, so we've got to be razor focused. And economic developers love to talk. They love to talk. If we're going to get something done, though, we've got to get focused right down on the issues. So just get that in mind, and I'll say that more than once before